Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime
during an interview with J is for Justice podcast.
Baby, I'm a fighter, never backing down. Baby, I'm a soldier, standing my ground.
J is for Justice.
If you're gonna find me for my heart, all you're gonna get is battle scars. Baby, I'm a tiger, 27. Baby, I'm a rifle, one bite you dead. So if you're gonna find me for my heart, all you're gonna get is battle scars.
What can I say any more than desire? More than just a pretty face.
J is for Justice.
Okay, you better walk away. Oh yeah. Only one love beside of the fire.
Wait a second, you guys. We have
Someone who
breaking
can handle
news.
me. Someone cut your heart today. Oh yeah.
Something scary. Wait a minute. I just got a text. Oh my
give you some
god.
closure before you know it, it's over.
Wait a second, you guys. We
So
have
run
breaking
away,
news.
run away.
Oh my god.
I'm not trying to hurt you,
J is for
but I will
Justice.
if I have to. I'ma tell you what I do. Run
Oh my
away,
God.
run away. Baby, I'm a fighter, never backing down. Baby, I'm a soldier, standing my ground. So if you're gonna find me for my heart,
During
all
an
you gonna
interview
get
with
is
J is
battle
for
scars.
Justice
Baby, I'm a
podcast.
tiger, 20 steps ahead. Baby, I'm a rifle, one bite to dead. So if you're gonna find me for my
Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up. Guys, welcome back. Welcome back. Hey, CCC. How are you? Prepper 101. Gamer guy, welcome back. Busy day here in Florida for news. But I wanted to come on. We do have a live scheduled at 8:30, so we're going to be like marathoning it tonight. But I wanted to come on and I wanted to show you guys this story because I think it's interesting and it's amazing that love you too, April Dawn. Hey, Shell. Hey, Debbie. Hey, Tiffany and Youper. Lori M. We're going to have 3 times in one day. How about that? Antique little girl. Thank you. Cheryl, what's up? Do not worry. Do not worry. Is that like a Krispy Kreme donut? Snoopy Snoop from Clearmont, Florida. What's up? In the Clearmont, Seatown. Julie from the UK. What up? I'm glad to hear you're doing well, CCC. It's always good to see you. Thanks for coming in and saying hi when you do. Heather, what up? I don't know Prepper 101. I haven't even gone there, and I don't know if I want to. Bob Saget, his family actually filed down here to have everything kept under wraps, whereas in Florida, we have the sunshine statutes. We usually get everything. So that'll be interesting to see what's going on. Cabin fever, do not worry. Hey, Lakeland, Florida. What's up, Jennifer? Hey, Moulin Rouge from NOLA. Laura Lee. You guys are all my
Roberta.
You are all my Roberters. That's your new names. Oh, you're snowed in. That sucks. Praying for spring soon. Hey, Lisa Marie. Okay, so real quick here, I'm going to give you just a little bit of backstory. Then we're going to watch this press conference. It runs about 30 minutes because I want to go over to Scott Skulls and watch him and Cher draw their lion tonight. So that's going on in about 35 minutes. So I want to get this going, but this actually will explain itself. I really don't need to give you guys a huge backstory. Hey, Darlene. Sunshine State Unite. What up, Draven? Black Widow. Draven, a.k.a. Black Widow. Your text is so intimidating. I'm just kidding. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a member. You're from Scranton. Woo! Oh, that's tomorrow. I forgot. Oh, my God. Potato told me that was tomorrow. Damn it. Holy. I'm losing my mind over here. The lion is tomorrow. So Friday night, lion drawing. And I sent over Scott Skulls a suggestion. I had a suggestion that we do like true crime drawing night. Drawl a killer.
Roberta.
So I don't know if he's agreed to do Drawl a killer, but I'm down for Drawl a killer. I don't know where Factoryville is. It sounds like an interesting town. Hi, Christy. Miss Roberta, you should, Robin. Miss
Roberta.
Hey, happy girl. Good grandma. Drawl. I just say drawl because.
Do you like to twirl?
And drawl. I don't know. He did agree. Okay, so my first suggestion, I'm going to put a little challenge and make Scott do something funny. My suggestion was to do Chad Daybell's chin. So, drawl a killer. Oh, sorry, Samantha. Oh, another
Roberta.
moment. Who's princess? I don't see a princess. Wait a minute. Oh, Princess Mariposa. There you are. Okay. I'm like, does a princess have me blocked? What's going on? So, yeah, Chad Daybell's chin was the first one. But I also would like him to draw Scott Peterson. Like maybe his mugshot of my choice. So I can hang it behind me as well by my horse. So as soon as I get my studio room fixed up. Okay, I gotta quit. Oh, no, we don't have to go to Scott Skulls. No rush. Jesus criminy. Don't you know?
Roberta.
Okay, so this story, crazy. And it's crazy to hear about. I want you guys to pay attention. I will pause it and talk about it. So I'm just going to shut up and I'm going to start it because I'm going to be talking through it. So you guys are going to be like, shut the fuck up. And let me just listen.
You know, my detectives are the best, and we will come after you and track you down.
Oh my God. Just Samantha gets comment of the night. Draw Jose crawling out of Allie's belly button.
We planted flowers on the side of the house.
That is so gross.
Don't break my door, you fucking bitch.
Okay, so
Right.
This is not a Grady story, though. This is coming at you from St. Lucie County. St. Lucie County is on... Hang on. Whoa, hold on a second, guys. What is that? Who is that? Who is it? Get him. Get him, Belle. All right. Did I just put my ass in y'all's face? Oh my God. I think I did. My bad. I was seeing who was outside. Hopefully I didn't give you too much. Next thing we know, Scott Skulls will be drawing that shit. Jose's in Jay's ass. Oh my God. On that note, I'm going to shut up and we are going to watch this and I'm going to cut in. So, shush. Shush.
There are some other turns to this case that really has shocked us all to our core, that being the arrest of a former deputy as the probable, not the arrest, but the identification of a former deputy as the probable suspect in this murder. Another twist to this case, this former deputy, James Harrison, I worked with in the late 70s and early 80s. He actually was a zone partner of mine when I was on the road. And,
okay, hold on. I'm going to pause
I want to guess
there.
it was somewhere around 79 or 80.
Check this out. This dude that's talking right now, this is what I'm shooketh about. This dude who's talking right now worked with this guy. The guy on the left talking worked with the guy on the right who killed this girl. This dude's dead now, though. He died of cancer. So, unfortunately, he can't be here to face these charges. Makes me mad.
I had made a complaint to my supervisors that I thought this deputy relationships with young adults, not.
You know, my detectives are the best, and we will come after you and track you down.
Yo, this guy worked with him, went to his superiors and said, I think he's been having inappropriate relationships with young people. We're talking 1979, 1980. He would have been a very young boy. Not boy, but you know what I'm saying? He would have been a very young man just starting out. Oh, that's why you guys thought it was Grady.
Just help a brother out here.
Sometimes I need a little help.
Sexual, not anything like that, but his interactions with young adults I thought was inappropriate. My concerns went up the food chain here at the sheriff's office at the time.
Lisa, thank
and
you.
My supervisor told me because he was a preacher that he was spiritually mentoring children at risk, and teenagers at risk. As I looked.
All right, did you hear that? Did you hear that, folks? He was told because this man was a preacher that he was mentoring young children. This guy had the intuition to say something ain't right.
Back, and Detective Taylor is going to expand on this. In my mind, I wonder if he was using his authority as a deputy sheriff and his standing as a preacher in the community to go ahead and violate children during the entire course of his life. This is a very, very concerning case because of that, but I can tell you that Detective Taylor will delve more into the facts of how he put the pieces together to make him the probable
Wait a minute.
suspect
I'm
in this
picking up what
homicide.
y'all are laying down. Hold on. You guys. No, I'm not judging all pastors. This isn't even about him being a pastor. What I'm seeing in chat is you guys are kind of saying like this dude is covering his ass. I don't think he was involved just because he happened to work on the same force as him.
Ashley, nobody said yikes, he hasn't come home, Ashley.
I see what Good Grandma's saying. Is that what you're thinking, Good Grandma? What's Help Me Facebook? I don't know what that is. Is that what well, right. I mean, true. Right, Maligator. He's saying that, but Good Grandma is saying that she thinks he's laying it on thick as to not point anything towards him. Okay. I get it. I'm picking up what you're saying now, Good Grandma, though. I was kind of like, what did her comments mean? But now I understand where you're coming from. Okay, so let's keep listening.
And without further ado, we're going to have Chief Deputy Hester go over some facts, and then Paul Taylor can really delve into the facts that led us to today.
Yeah, this is where it gets good, you guys. So we have a couple more people talk, but then the cold case detective tells us a lot of interesting deals. This is very interesting. Good Grandma, have you seen this yet? If you haven't seen it, there's a lot more. Trust me.
Thank you so much. You know, the proof is in the pudding, if you will.
Well, good morning, everybody. And as the sheriff said, I'm going to really just cover some of the facts of the case and maybe try to alleviate a few questions that you might have, and then we'll open up to Detective Taylor and the sheriff and myself to answer any questions you might have. So I apologize, but the facts are rather lengthy, so I'm going to have to read some of these.
Hey, Damien.
So just bear with me.
You're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
But, you know, the headline is that we solved a 1983 cold case homicide involving Laura Ann Weiser.
This is a horrific story.
So based on the information that was obtained during this investigation of the cold case, detectives have named former Deputy James Howard Harrison as the only probable suspect in the case. All right, and just pay attention.
Good grandma's like, see how he stressed that? The only probable suspect.
To how I work.
Good grandma's my conspiracy theorist, I think.
That the only probable suspect in this case. The sheriff's office is unable to pursue charges against Mr. Harrison due to his death in 2008. We have established probable cause. As you know, probable cause is what we need to make an arrest. But we have established probable cause to determine that Harrison abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered the juvenile victim, and later altered the crime scene by placing the victim in a drainage ditch in an attempt to destroy physical evidence. Some more facts about the case in 1983. On November 6, 1983, according to original witness reports, a uniformed patrol deputy, later confirmed to be Harrison, observed Weiser walking toward her home from a local gas station around the same time as her disappearance. On November 9th of 1983, 3 days later, deputies recovered Weiser's body nearby that location where Harrison saw her. Both locations were within Harrison's zone or district that he patrolled. They were near Midway Road and Shin Road in western St. Lucie County. Detectives that were originally assigned to this case back in 1983 were unable to link Harrison to the crime or identify any viable suspects at that time. In 2021, analysis at a private DNA lab recovered unknown male DNA from the victim's sexual assault kit that was done back in 1983. In response to this new evidence, cold case detectives obtained a search warrant to exhume Harrison's body. However, a comparison was not possible due to the fact that Harrison's DNA had degraded so much over the past 30 some odd years. As detectives continued to investigate, those familiar with the original investigation have confirmed that Harrison had instructed two witnesses back on that date when the body was found to leave the scene approximately 20 minutes before additional law enforcement personnel arrived to assist in the investigation. Cold case detectives also learned that the location and position of the victim's body, once the initial crime scene investigators arrived on scene, differed from that of witness statements. Harrison had worked for 10 separate law enforcement agencies in Florida since 1960s.
Yikes.
During this time, he exhibited a pattern of inappropriate behavior involving juvenile females. This pattern has led detectives to believe that Harrison may be responsible for other sexual assault cases across our state. So we're asking the community, if you have any information, we're asking really the state of Florida, if you have any information regarding James Harrison or his possible involvement in any other criminal investigation, you may contact the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigation Division.
I wonder if this man was married. I'd be curious to know that. If a lot of these people you'll hear soon from the cold case detective who stepped into this case, you will hear everything that he does and did to solve this. It's
772-462-3230. So that concludes the facts of what we have today. The one thing I want to follow up before we take questions with is, I know you're going to ask, why is this important? Why are we going back and we're looking at these cold cases? And I'll give you two answers. One is closure to the families, closure to the
No one's
the
questioning
families
why
of
they're
the
covering
victims
cold
of these
cases. I have
cold
no idea
cases.
why he's saying this.
And to provide, if you were a family member and you had lost a loved one in a violent crime and you didn't know who or how or a suspect, there's a piece of closure there that doesn't exist. And so our goal is to try and reopen as many of these cold cases and do our best to solve them. And you say, well, why now? Well, because technology has changed so drastically in law enforcement over 20, 30, 40 years. And so technology affords us the ability to do what we're doing. So we're using that technology, we're using new training, we're using detectives that have great experience to go back and look at these cases, just like this one of Lorianne Weiser, and to attempt to provide that closure and to solve some of these cases for our community. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. We've got Detective Taylor. Did we want him to speak? Do you have anything you want, or just answer questions?
I'll just answer questions.
Okay, just answer questions. So with that, we'll take questions.
So my math is right. She would have been in her 50s today. Does she still have family in the area? And have you guys been able to contact them?
So he has spoke with the family. So
He's the one with all the info anyways.
Hello. Yes, I did go meet with the family. Once I closed the case, me and my supervisor drove over and met with the family, sat down with them. Some of them were from out of state. They actually flew in to meet with us over on the West Coast. So we sat with them for several hours going over the case. They were distraught, to say the least. The first thing they told me was, we're glad it wasn't somebody that we actually knew, that it wasn't a family member or anywhere along those lines. So,
Sheriff, you said that you had complained, you sent your complaint up to your superiors.
Correct.
Do you know how many complaints were made about him during his time here? Was he terminated as a result, or what brought his career here to an end?
Well, I worked with him in the late 70s, early 80s, and he worked here until I left the agency September of 1980. He was still here. He left in 82, unbeknownst to me. I don't know what the reason was, but came back in 83, so he's only gone for a short period of time. I returned to St. Lucie County the end of 83 and actually became a reserve member on the Sheriff's Office, and he was working here. And it was shortly after my return here that he resigned under, what's the word I want to use? He resigned after some accusations were made. I do not know the extent of those accusations, but I knew that he resigned then, and that was in 1984.
Thank you for that, wee jobby.
Earlier, I guess Chief Deputy Hester was talking about Harrison had a number of complaints or issues in his 10 prior law enforcement agencies. Why was he hired then if he had such a sort of checkered past or whatever?
Yeah, he can. Go ahead.
Please do.
okay, so whenever I first started this investigation has taken almost 2 years to do. Whenever I first started looking into this case, Deputy Harrison was not a suspect. The only thing that I saw glaring in there that really made me scratch my head was if this little girl, she's very small, she was carrying a bundle of clothing, and she's seen by a uniformed patrol deputy within view of her driveway. And what made me scratch my head was any deputy that saw this little girl walking in the area that she was walking would assume that she was a runaway. She's carrying clothes, she's little, they would have stopped out with her. So at that point in time, it was like, why did this deputy not stop out with her and give her a ride home? If that would have happened and everything would have went perfectly, right now she would probably be married and have children and all of that. So,
isn't that messed up? And no one had that kind of common sense back then? That Mr. James Howard Harrison, Fatty McPatty, James Gacy lookalike didn't help her? Instead, oh my God, it gets worse. It gets worse.
Talking to the old people that used to, or the old timers from here. Basically, the way they hired and fired people back in those days was all based off of your resume.
This is crazy too.
Talking to our old assistant chief, he said, Paul, he said, back then, he said, these guys would come in to get a job, and he said, it wasn't like you could get on the internet and do a background search, or there wasn't no master phone log of every law enforcement agency in Florida. He said, people would come in and say, hey, here's my resume. I've got experience in law enforcement. They would review that, and they're pretty much hired off of that. So that's kind of how this whole thing, that's how he kind of slipped through the cracks through all of these 11 different agencies that he worked, 10 different agencies that he worked at.
Wow.
So when did Deputy Harrison sort of become a suspect, I guess?
So during my investigation, basically what I do is I kind of start at the beginning and I treat the investigation like it happened the day before.
I think that's
I started
awesome.
trying to find any witnesses that were available. I started going through everything that's in the case file. I got to a point where I went and I interviewed the original witnesses that found her.
Wow.
At that point in time, Harrison was not even a name in my radar. So when I started talking to them, I asked them if they could describe what they saw that day, because there's nothing in the report from them about what they found, what they saw. Detectives never made contact with them again. After that initial point, when they found her and Jim Harrison showed up, he sent them from the scene, and they were never contacted by law enforcement again.
Can you believe this? This guy, Fatty McPatty, showed up and shooed away the witnesses, and those witnesses were never spoken to again.
So the description that they were giving me, and I asked them, I said, it's been almost 40 years. Do you remember this case? And there was tears. They started crying and said, I see that little girl lying there every time I close my eyes for the last 38 years. And I said, okay. I said, can you explain to me what you saw? And it was very graphic. It was very vivid. They had a very good recollection of everything that they saw on the scene that day. So the description that I'm getting from them, I had already looked at all of the crime scene photos. I had been through most of the case file, and what they're telling me does not match what I'm seeing. So at that point in time, I'm like, what's wrong with this picture? So I started digging a little more. I came back. I started going through the crime scene photos, and then I started reaching out to every single person that I could that would have been around at our agency back then. And that's when I started learning there was some inappropriate things, there was some accusations, and that's when I started looking into him.
So you started looking into, are we talking like last year, or a year and a half, 2 years?
I've probably been looking at him for over a year. I can't tell you the exact date that it's like, ooh, Jim Harrison might be a possible suspect, but I have reached out to a lot of people that knew him. I reached out to every different agency that he's worked at. I got a lot of information from years past from his law enforcement career.
Are there any other cold cases in any other parts of Florida that kind of match up with this case around that same time that could possibly be linked to Harrison?
Yes, so I actually went and I met with the Florida Sheriff's Association. They have a cold case advisory commission. I was there yesterday to give them a briefing on this case because I submitted this case to them back in the beginning of 2001, and they have spent a lot of money on this case. They paid for all of our DNA testing. They did a lot of things. They gave me advice on different avenues to go. Talking to them yesterday, with the 10 agencies that he worked at, they're all right up the middle of the state. And I've reached out to all of them. They are looking through their files now. I've actually, since this got released this morning, my phone has been ringing like crazy in my office. I've had other agencies calling me saying, hey, we've got these unsolved rapes, could it be him? His DNA is in CODIS now. I put them in contact with FDLE to get his DNA profile to see if he matches any of these other cases. The Cold Case Commission also wants me to do a press release to them.
In my opinion, this follow-up that he's doing is amazing because they didn't just solve a cold case. He's going the extra mile, and look at all the resources that he has to go to help with costs within the department. Florida really has a lot of things together, and I'm really impressed when I hear stories like this. I think every state needs to have resources like the state of Florida has put in place in this case for cold cases. I think it's amazing.
That they can send out to every law enforcement agency across Florida to see if this does match any other cases that they might have.
Hey, Susan.
DNA is in the system. Can you not compare it to the sample from the
So
rape kit?
the sample, we did, whenever I exhumed him, we did get a profile from him. The FDLE said that as soon as we can get a profile, send it to them. The profile that what we couldn't do with that profile is we couldn't compare it to the DNA that was recovered from her rape kit. The DNA in the rape kit was showing that it was a male DNA profile, but it was too degraded to be able to compare to Harrison's DNA that I obtained.
Oh,
so yeah, they just could not get it. You know, and hopefully, you know, years from now when DNA advances, because it advances every 6 months, so hopefully down the road that's something that they can compare to, but they were just unable to make a comparison to the rape kit.
Sorry, in hindsight, do you think the sheriff's office back then made mistakes? Was this deputy at all involved in the investigation? Was he able to kind of keep a strong hold over information that might come forward? In hindsight, do you think there were missteps?
There was missteps. There's no doubt about that. And the good thing is whenever I talked to the family, I told them, you know, we've learned a lot over the years. We don't do a homicide investigation in 2022 like they did in 1983. There was a lot of steps that are missed. Whenever I was talking to the old chief deputy, he was saying, Paul, this is how it is. You know, this is how these investigations used to work. The original detective on that case, he's still alive and he still lives in St. Lucie County. I actually brought him in, and for 3 hours we went through the case file. He was reviewing everything. He was giving me his opinions. He was, you know, pretty much telling me what happened with that case. And basically that case, when she went missing, it was on a Sunday, November 6, 1983. She went missing after staying the night with her friend. When she went missing that night, when the dad was trying to find her to bring her home, they couldn't find her. So when they called 911 and the deputy came out, when the deputy took the original missing person report, talking to the detective said, Paul, back then, we didn't do much. He said back then, we always assumed that if a juvenile was missing, they're over at their friend's house, or they're hanging out here, or they got busy doing something else, and they're going to return home. And he said that's how that case was. He said 3 days later when she was found, he said the sheriff was mad. He said the sheriff said, I want an arrest made right now. He said that they went out and they were stopping every single car, truck, you know, fruit trailer, anything that was going up and down Okeechobee Road trying to find a suspect. And all of the suspects that they came up with back then, they were all ruled out.
And was Deputy Harrison involved in the investigation itself?
He was not. He was actually brought in, and I have no documentation of this except for the word of other employees that were employed here back then. They said that he was brought in, and they asked him, you know, when you saw this little girl, what was going on with her? So that kind of adds to how this whole thing could have happened, because I actually took crime scene out to the scene there and took pictures of everything. And I'm standing at the intersection where she was last seen. And if you look to the east, you can see where she came from. You can see the business that she had just walked from. And if you look to the south, you can see her mailbox. So there is it's a very, very small window of opportunity for her to go missing and for him to make contact with her right in the middle of that, within view of where she came from and where she was going. There's really not much time left for anybody to just come in and snatch her up. And with her being where she was found, where her body was discovered, was approximately 600 yards to the southeast of where she was abducted from. So that also goes to show you that they really didn't do a good search, because I mean she's right there. And the family said they went out on bikes and rode all around and didn't find her. So there was a lot of things missed in that investigation, and they never doubled back to speak with the original witnesses. And that was confirmed through the witnesses. That was confirmed from the original detective. He said, Paul, we missed it. He said, if we would have went back, once I started telling him about what I had found, he said, if we would have went back that day and met with them and had them write out a statement and tell us, we would have known she wasn't in the water. We would have known she was laying in the grass, face up and not face down in the water like she was found. So.
How did the deputy die? Do you know?
I believe he died of cancer. I was able to find that out just by Google searches and familytreenow.com, which is my favorite website. But
why do you think this rape kit wasn't retested in 2020 or 2019 when technology was still pretty advanced?
Well, at that point in time, before I started working the cold cases full time, back then, the way it worked in the Detective Bureau is, I mean, our Detective Bureau is very busy. And the way it always worked was if it slowed down enough to have any free time, the supervisors would tell the detectives, hey, grab one of those cold cases, start going through it. Well, you would start going through it, you're maybe going through it for 1 or 2 days, and then it's like, oh, we got a homicide, or we got this, put it back on the shelf, let's go, and that's just the way it was.
Do you have a list of the 10 agencies on hand?
I do.
Do you think that there was any, like, conspiracy going on? I mean, because when you say, like, when it was disclosed that, I guess Deputy Harrison told these 2 witnesses to leave prior to other deputies getting there, I mean, do you think that there was some sort of a conspiracy, like others could have been involved? Or
I did look into that. I've questioned every single person that I can find that would.
Good question. Because why didn't the deputies who showed up after he shooed the witnesses away, why didn't they follow up, and why didn't they wonder where the witness statements were? Amy, I saw that you did text me, and I will look at that after the live. Thank you so much. I would be more than happy if there's a lot of info to report on that one too.
Involved with the agency back then. Harrison was not a real well-liked guy anyway, but whenever I talked to the original detective, I'm saying, dude, how could this happen? And he said, Paul, he said, he was a cop. He was another deputy. When we got there, he said, hey, they found this girl, brought me to her, and they left. And that was it. I mean, that's the statement that we got. But he said that back then, this is a deputy telling them this. You know, a deputy just said, hey, this is everything that they told me. They driving through the grove, they found her, and I sent them home. So at that point in time, like I said earlier.
Okay, but any cop knows you get a written statement from a witness. Come on. Lazy.
We planted flowers on the side of the house.
Sheriff was like, I want an arrest made now. It was all hands on deck, scramble to solve that case. And it was just, it's something that was overlooked where they didn't make it back to interviewing the original witnesses.
why would he keep their...
It was, wait. Oh, shit. I didn't mean to do that.
After the firing shot was in train.
I'm sorry. I got all excited. Wait, what? It was all hands on deck. Okay, see, now I'm picking up on things that I don't like. It was all hands on deck. But no one ever got around to interviewing the witnesses.
What? You know what I mean? If he was intentionally trying to get people to deflect people from talking to these original witnesses, that could have perhaps...
And that could be the reason why he didn't, you know, why he never went back and talked to them. The detectives, though, they just had their hands full. They were busy. They were trying to come up with something.
This is major because oftentimes cold cases don't get solved. A lot of these cases end with heartache, heartbreak, and mystery.
Roberta.
This case was solved. Can you speak more about the percentages of cold cases that actually get solved around the country and why this is so major for this, you know, law enforcement agency as well as the family of the victim?
Well, the statistics that I've been able to find is that only 2% of cold cases, approximately 2% of cold cases in the United States are actually solved.
Wow.
Looking into, as far as law enforcement
Robin.
agencies that have a full-time cold case unit, there's only 7% of law enforcement agencies across the country that have a full-time cold case unit, where there's somebody that works those cases all the time. And that's kind of what it takes to get to these, you know, because looking at it for 2 days and putting it back on the shelf doesn't work.
was the moment like for you when you were able to tell the family that this is the most probable suspect? You described, what they said. So what was that moment like for you when you were able to give them that information?
I will tell you.
Thank you, One Shot Scott, so much.
I've been in law enforcement 30 years. Like I told them, and I know it went into the email, that day was my best day in law enforcement. And it was also my worst day. It's still my worst day.
Proof is in the pudding, if you
I'm actually standing
will.
there in front of this victim's family, and I'm telling them that one of our deputies is the one that did it.
Can you try to
rough.
smile?
It's hard to say. It's hard to even put the words out right now. I wish it would have been.
Oh shit! I thought
Somebody else.
Oh
I
my
wish
God.
it would have been some, dirtbag that does this all the time. But
When did that get paused, you guys? I left the room. I'm singing. I went to go get my phone. I am so sorry. I thought that was playing. Jesus.
I had to follow the evidence, and the evidence led to him, unfortunately. So
if he was still alive now, would you have enough to file a warrant?
I absolutely would, and I would love for him to be alive right now, because in my 30 years of law enforcement, there is nobody else I would rather have in the box interviewing than him.
Where was he buried, I guess?
He was buried in Ocoee, which is on the other side of Orlando.
Do we have a name of the church he was a pastor of, and is that church still very much thriving? And
I do. Whenever he was forced to resign from our agency, this was 5 months after the homicide, he was forced to resign from our agency. He also was forced to resign from that church. The church, it's changed hands quite a few times, and I'm sure they don't know a lot about what's going on. But I don't know if can we release the name of the church?
It's no longer. The church is there, but it's a different organization.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's Bethel Baptist Church in Fort Pierce.
And was he an actual, legit ordained
He was a
minister?
pastor, yes, he was. And everybody that knew him called him preacher.
Correct.
Every agency that I've reached out to said, oh, preacher, yeah. Everybody knew him as preacher.
This case was so close to you. I believe we talked to you recently. You had a picture of her hanging in your office.
It's still there right now. I can tell you the story of how that picture came to be, but there is a picture of her in my office.
Go ahead. I think it's important.
So that picture hangs above my desk every day. So basically, I lost my only child to suicide 5 years ago. There had been a while after he died that I had no dreams of him, and it used to bother me, and it upset my wife that she wasn't having dreams of him. So one night I had a dream of my son, and I heard him, and he always called me Pappy. And I heard him. I'm walking somewhere, and I hear him yelling my name. And I'm looking around, I don't see him, and finally I see him coming up to me, and he's screaming at me, and he's like, Pappy, I found her. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he gets right in my face, and he says, I found her. And I'm like, who are you talking about? And I looked over, and I saw Laura standing there. And she just looked at me and said one word to me, or one sentence to me, and she said, keep digging. And I woke up. So the picture, when I got into my office the next day, I pulled a picture of her out. She's standing in front of this little wall. She's just a little bitty girl. And I wrote on it, keep digging, Laura Ann, and stuck it on my wall, and it's been there ever since.
Back in the 80s, were any arrests ever initially made? Anybody initially charged?
No, they were unable to develop good suspect information on anybody. At that point in time, all of the detectives that were working that case, they all just assumed that it was a traveler, somebody driving between Fort Pierce and Okeechobee. Whenever I first started working the case, I'm trying to make sense of that, because in my feeble mind, I just couldn't understand if somebody drove up and snatched her and they were just traveling back and forth, they would have grabbed her and left the area. They wouldn't have stayed right there in this area. I mean, it's out in the middle of nowhere. They would have hauled her away, and for her to be found 600 yards to the south or to the southeast, it wasn't a traveler.
And then if this type of situation happened today where a deputy said, oh, I spoke with the witnesses, they said she was found over there, what would happen next today?
There'd be detectives going there. We would get them on tape. We got body cams. I love my body cam. It's like a portable interview room. We would go talk to them, get a statement from them, written statement, recorded statement, have them come here. We would get all that information from them. I mean, we would try to gather as much information as we could, every little detail. I mean, there's a lot of things that I would have asked them back then. You know, how long has it been since you've been in the Grove? Why were you in the Grove? You know, how long had it been since you had been in the Grove? You know, lots of different things. Who all works in the Grove? I mean, there's a million different questions that a detective nowadays would ask them. It didn't happen
Creek
back then.
Town, dude.
That's right.
It sounds like just the profession, law enforcement in general, over the years has gotten far more meticulous, thorough, sort of deep diving, I guess, not just sort of, oh, well, Deputy Joe Blow talked to this witness, I don't need to talk to him. I mean, much more thorough. And this type of thing perhaps would be far less likely to happen now than perhaps
Well,
back then.
I will tell you this. I work with some of the best detectives in the world. We are very good at our jobs. If a homicide comes up, we are very, very good at solving homicides. We're very thorough. We go through, I mean, our supervisors were all detectives. They were great detectives in their day. Now they're supervising us and telling us, hey, do this, this, and this. And it works very, very well. We have a great detective bureau.
Live on WFLA Now, this is Heidi.
I respect you.
Okay. I said, and there is the lovely and the fabulous JB. Hashtag, hey JB. And I said I wanted to thank One Shot Scott again for his donation. April King, I love it. I need those speakers sometimes to remind me to make sure I'm unmuted. But I want to thank One Shot Scott. Thank you for your donation. That was very sweet. And everyone who joined today, obviously just joining the stream means a lot and it helps. And so does that thumbs up. So if you could use that thumbs up after this video. When I end this stream too, it's going to take you to our event. Datset and I will be back here in roughly about an hour and 20 minutes. I know I have a sign. I need like a buzzer. Shell needs like a remote with a buzzer. You see me fly out of my chair. Anyways, thank you so much. But Datset and I are coming back in an hour and 20, and we are going to be going over the case of Cody Bigsby. He is a missing 4-year-old, and I think that's out of Virginia or West Virginia. She knows the case. She's been following it. If you guys have any cold cases, send them to the team email, and we will be covering those. We're going to try to go state by state if we can. So send us over. We're going to separate them by state, and then we will go, one by one and hopefully do like a case a week. And I want to thank everyone for being here again, and we will be here in an hour and 20, and we'll see you then. Like I said, after this live ends, it'll take you to the next event. Just so you know, if you stick around. I'll see you soon. I'll see you soon, Mai.
Roberta.
I don't give a damn. I don't really care about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. You talk way too much. What? I have heard enough about you and your problems. I don't
Ashley,
give a
nobody said yikes, he hasn't come home, Ashley.
You wanna be with me. You wanna feel something real, but I'm feeling differently. You're making plans to get to France, but don't wanna face the fact that I ain't got time,
You know, the proof is in the pudding, if you will.
Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Moderators!
Do you like to twirl?